Let me ask you something. Do you ever feel like you understand yourself too well? You know exactly why you feel the way you feel. You can trace your emotions back to childhood. You notice every shift in your mood, every reaction, every insecurity, and yet you're not happy. In fact, sometimes it feels like the more self-aware you become, the harder happiness feels to reach. And that's confusing, because everyone says self-awareness is the key, the cure, the answer, but no one talks about the other side of it, the part where awareness turns into exhaustion. Psychology explains why that happens. And if this video describes you, you're not broken. You're just stuck in a very specific mental loop. Self-awareness is supposed to help you grow. At first, it does. You stop blaming other people. You reflect. You take responsibility. But for some people, awareness doesn't stop there. It turns into constant self-monitoring. You don't just feel sad. You analyze why you're sad. You don't just feel anxious. You break it down, label it, trace it, explain it. You don't just enjoy moments. You watch yourself enjoying them. Psychologists call this hyper-reflection. Instead of living your life, you start observing it from the outside. And the problem is simple. Happiness doesn't happen when you're watching yourself live. It happens when you're inside the experience. Here's the trap most self-aware people fall into. You don't just think. You think about your thinking. You don't just feel. You analyze the feeling. And the moment happiness shows up, your brain steps in and asks, is this real? How long will this last? Why am I feeling this? And just like that, the moment is gone. Happiness is emotional, but overanalysis pulls you back into logic. Logic doesn't feel joy. It dissects it. So the more aware you become, the more often you interrupt your own happiness without realizing it. This part matters. Highly self-aware people are usually emotionally intelligent, thoughtful, introspective, deep thinkers, which also means they see more than most people. They see flaws in systems. They see uncertainty in plans. They see consequences before others do. They don't blindly believe everything will work out. That's not negativity. That's clarity. But clarity without balance can quietly drain joy. When you see how fragile things are, it's harder to relax into them. Not because you're pessimistic, but because you're realistic. Here's another uncomfortable truth. Awareness alone doesn't heal anything. You can understand your trauma perfectly and still feel triggered. You can explain your anxiety and still feel anxious. Self-aware people often confuse understanding with progress. But psychology shows something very clear. Insight without action leads to frustration. Your nervous system doesn't change just because you understand it. So you end up stuck in this gap between knowing and changing. And that gap slowly turns into hopelessness. This is where many self-aware people start blaming themselves. They think, if I understand myself this well, why am I still struggling? And instead of questioning the method, they question themselves. They assume something is wrong with them. But here's the truth. Self-awareness makes pain louder, not worse. You notice discomfort earlier. You feel emotional shifts faster. You sense misalignment quicker than others. That doesn't mean you're broken. It means your internal system is sensitive. And sensitive systems need different care, not more pressure. Most people are taught self-awareness. Very few are taught self-permission. Permission to feel without explaining, enjoy without analyzing, exist without fixing. You learn how to understand emotions, but not how to allow them. And happiness doesn't come from solving every emotion. It comes from letting emotions move through you, without interrogation. Ironically, happiness often requires less awareness in the moment. Not more, not ignorance, just selective attention. Here's the shift psychology suggests. Instead of constantly asking, why am I feeling this? Sometimes ask, what am I doing right now? Bring attention back into your body, into movement, into action. Self-aware people don't need more insight. They need more embodiment, more doing, less dissecting. That's where happiness lives. If you've ever felt like you're too self-aware to be happy, you're not defective. You're not failing. You're not incapable of joy. You've just been using awareness without balance. Happiness isn't something you figure out. It's something you allow. If this video made you feel understood, hit like, subscribe to Clearway for Psychology Explained Simply, and share this with someone who feels too aware for their own good. They'll feel seen.